Do you want to become a full stack developer? One of the most awesome and most high paying jobs and one of the most in demand jobs on the planet right now. Of course you do. And that's why you need to watch this video.
Hey, how's it going, guys? This is Max here from Deal Development, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to build a full stack to-do list app using React.js and Google's Firebase. If you've never done Firebase before, especially with React, then this tutorial is perfect for you. If you are a React beginner, then this tutorial is perfect for you. And even if you're already fairly adept at both, I think you'll definitely gain some value out of this one. And you'll definitely sharpen your skills with JavaScript, React, and Firebase. So I really hope you guys are excited for this, and let's get right into it. Alright guys, let's get started with this app. So I'm going to go ahead and open this folder called Firebase To-Do List with VS Code. Right, so we got it open here, and I'm going to open up the terminal here, and we're going to make a new React app using npx create React app and a dot to put it in the current directory. So that's going to make our React app template for us. Usually takes quite a while to install, so I'll just skip past this one. Okay, cool guys, so after create React app took 10 million years to install, we're finally ready to create the app. So I'm here in app.js, and we've got our main app div right here, so I'm just going to delete everything inside of here, because that's all we're going to need. We also don't need this logo import over there, so that's our app.js for now. App CSS, we can just leave that for now. Index, can pretty much just leave all of that. I did delete the tests because we don't need to do that. Then I'm going to go over here, delete these logos, delete and delete. I'm just going to delete the logo references inside the manifest because we don't need those. Can leave all of that, and then I'm just going to take away all these comments because they just annoy me. We don't need that logo. Cool, and we're going to be making a full stack to-do app. Cool. Then I'm going to go ahead and in my src folder, I'm going to create a components folder, and I'm also going to create a screens folder like that. Right, so the first thing we're going to do is inside our components folder, I'm going to make two files. The first one is going to be a todo.js, and I'm also going to have a to-do list.js. So the to-dos are going to go inside of the to-do list, and that would be the parent component, and that would be the child component. So let's start off with making the to-do component first. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to say RACFE. That's going to generate an arrow function component for us. Now, this to-do is going to have to take in as a prop the specific to-do in order to render the correct information, right? So instead of saying props, like we normally do to take in props to a component, you just put some curly braces and this will destructure it automatically, basically. So I'm going to say inside here to do. So we're automatically taking the prop to do into the to do component, right? So we're first going to make the to-do component very simple. I'm just going to give this div a class name of to-do, just like that. Then inside there, I'm going to have another div, and that is going to have a class name of to-do -id, because that's going to hold the ID of each to-do. Then inside there, I'm just going to have an h5 ID, right? And then I'm going to make a span in here actually. And this is where we dynamically render to-do.id. It's coming from the destructured prop like that. So that's the to-do ID. After that, we're going to have the actual text of the to-do. So I'm going to make another div over here. This one's going to have a class name of to-do-text. So that's going to hold the actual text of the to-do, right? So for now, I'm just going to put inside here a p paragraph, and I'm going to dynamically render with the curly brackets the to-do.text. Like that. So that's our to-do component for now. It's extremely simple. Of course, this won't do anything for now because this does not exist. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, in order to render that to-do component that we just made right now, in my to-do list.js, I'm going to make RACFE for a functional component again. And right here at the top, I'm going to say const to-dos equals an array. And I'm just going to hard code the to-dos for now. So every to-do is going to be an object, and it's going to have an ID. So let's just say 1. And then it's also going to have a text value. And I will just set this one to go have fun. Like that. And then let's just make 2 more. So ID equals 2. And eat a grape. And then ID equals 3. Laugh at joke. So we have 3 to-dos. They're hard-coded in a constant variable, and it is an array of objects, and there are 3 of them for now. And each one has an ID and a text value, right? Cool. So in the actual return here, I'm going to first of all open up an expression, and I'm going to take that variable we just made, to-dos. I'm going to say .map. And we're going to take each to-do, and for each to-do, what we're going to do is render a to-do component for each to-do. And in order to do that, we're going to need to pass in as a prop the to-do as such. Now this obviously hasn't been brought in yet, so let's go ahead and do that. So up here we just say import to-do from to-do. So this is our to-do list, and we are rendering a to-do. We are passing in a to-do as a prop to the to-do component. And we are mapping through these hard-coded to-dos right here. Cool, so we made our to-do component, and we made our to-do list component, and we just hard-coded some to-dos, and we are mapping through them right over here. And we are rendering a to-do component, and we are passing in each to-do as a prop, right? So in our screens folder, I'm going to make a home screen.js. I'm also going to do the RACFE to generate the component. And I'm just going to make this really simple for now. I'm just going to put a h1, say full stack to-do app, like that. Then I'm going to import the to-do list component from /, components, and to-do list. And then underneath this h1, I'm just going to render that to-do list component. So that should have our to-dos right in there. Then in app.js, this is going to be our main kind of hub. I'm going to import the home screen component from // where is it? Components, not components, screens, home screen, there it is. So we're just going to render home screen for now. That's just the main app component right there, rendering the home screen component. So let's bring up the terminal. Let's say npm start to start up the server. Alright, so the server should be up and running. Let's go to localhost 3000. And there is our to-do app so far. We are displaying our to-dos. We've got an ID and text for each to-do. Great. Obviously looks absolutely awful. So I'm going to go back to the app, and what we're going to do now is exit out of this, and we're going to say npm I or install react-bootstrap. Okay, great. So React Bootstrap has been installed. So what I'm going to do now is go into the to-do list, and we're just going to do a couple of bootstrappy things here. I'm going to import from React Bootstrap a container, a row, and a col. Then where we are rendering these to-dos, first of all, this main div here, I'm just going to give this a class name of my5, so that's just going to give us some margin on the top and bottom. Then I'll make a container in here, and then I will make a row. Then I will make a col inside of that row, and then I will put these to-dos where we are mapping through them right inside there, like that. So that should give us a nice container and some nice spacing for our to-dos, make it look a little bit better. Then I'm going to go over to the to-do component, and we're also going to import the button from React Bootstrap. Cool, so I'm going to go underneath the to-do text, and I'm going to make a div with a class name of buttons. Then we are going to have two buttons. The first one is going to be for marking each to-do as done and unmarking it as well. And the other button is going to be for deleting a specific to-do. So we say button, capital B, that's a React Bootstrap button. Now inside here, I'm going to paste this. And this is just from the React Bootstrap icon library. It's just a React Bootstrap icon. You can go to the website and you can find them right from there. Just search for React Bootstrap icons. So I'm going to give this a class name of mark button. And we're going to have one more button for deleting. So let's just copy this one. And del button will be the class name of that one. And instead of that one, we are going to have this one. So it's just another React Bootstrap icon. Cool. Cool, so if we have a look at our app now, we've got our buttons at least. Still looks absolutely awful though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the app CSS. I'm just going to delete everything. And I'm going to import this font from Google Fonts. It's called Fredoka 1. Interesting. So one thing I am going to do is on the app component in general, so pretty much everything, I'm just going to keep that text align center property. Then also on the body, I'm going to change the font family to that Fredoka 1. I'm going to give it a background color of 333. It's a nice dark color. And the color of all the text is just going to be white. So let's just take a look. Looking a little bit better. Also, one thing you are going to want to do is go over to the React Bootstrap documentation and just grab the CSS link. That will definitely help things. Put that right in our index HTML. Now if we go back, we can see that our buttons look a lot better. So I'm not completely satisfied with how this looks just yet, so let's go back to our app and let's create a todo.css in our components folder. Then let's import that in our to-do component. So import todo.css. And let's see, so we're wrapping the whole to-do. It's got the ID, it's got the text, it's got the buttons, right? So it's all getting wrapped in this div class named to-do. So let's go back over here, let's target that. So to-do. And let's just give it some padding, about 1 rem. Let's give it a border bottom of 1 pix solid. And let's just make it black for now. Let's display every to-do as a flex so that they go nice and horizontally. And then let's do margin 0 auto just to make sure everything is centered. Okay, we're getting there. We got the general structure. Let's target the to-do text. And let's just make it a little bigger. So font size, let's say 1.3 rem. Let's also target the to-do text p, so the paragraph. And let's just give it a bit of margin left. Well, a lot of margin left. So 5 rem. See, yeah, cool. We got some spacing there. Let's see. Let's take the to-do ID and display that as a flex. Let's take the buttons, give them margin of 0 auto. And let's take also the to-do ID paragraph and just a bit of margin left. Let's say 5 rem, so a lot again. Cool, that's the spacing is quite nice there. I want to have a little bit of space on these buttons though, they're a bit cramped together. So I'm going to go to the to-do. And on the delete button over here, I'm just going to give it some inline style. So style equals, and then you got to use 2 curly brackets here. I'm just going to give it some margin left. Let's just say 10 pixels. Let's check it out. It's not working. There we go. It's working. Fantastic. Then one other thing I just want to do quickly is give these buttons, these bootstrap buttons, variants. So I'm going to give this one variant of, this is the delete button, so danger, that'll make it red. And the mark button variant, let's make it warning, so that'll be yellow. Let's check it out. That's not yellow. There, it's yellow.
Yay!
Cool. So before we start to implement Firebase into our app, I just want to change a little bit of things up. So the way that the data is currently flowing through our app is in the to-do component, we're passing the to-do as a prop here, and that is how we render all the specific information about a single to-do, right? So instead of doing that, we're going to need to obviously take the to-dos from Firebase, from the database, and that's how we're going to display them in the end. But before I do that, I'm going to go into the to-do list, and you can see here we're hard coding the to-dos, right? So I'm actually going to cut these out of here. To-dos will be undefined right now because I just cut that out, so we're going to pass it in right here, to-dos, as a prop to the to-do list component. Then I'm going to go over to the home screen, and right here where we're rendering the to-do list, I'm going to give this a prop of to-dos equal to to-dos. So it's still the hard-coded to-dos, I'm just going to put them right up here for now, okay? So if we go back, it's still the exact same thing. Cool guys, so the next thing we're going to do is start to implement Firebase as a database into our app. So you're going to want to go to firebase.com. This is Google's Firebase, it's a cloud database, really awesome. Get started, click on get started. So here you can see our projects. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a project. Let's call this Firebase to-do list app. Cool, continue. Google Analytics, might as well. Google Analytics, just select your account there, create project. Creating your project. Just a second there. Our new project is ready. So here's basically the main page of your project for your Firebase app. You've got authentication, you've got your Firestore. We're going to go over to the Firestore. And we're going to create a new database in production mode. So let's click next. And this is just the server. You can just keep it as that default there. So let's say enable. Just a second there. Just a bit of a spinny guy over here. Setting up the security rules. Just setting up the... There we go, it's created our Firestore. So what we do over here, we're going to make a new collection. So your app can have multiple collections, of course, and they're all called different things, and they're basically meant to keep different genres of data. So I'm going to make a new collection over here. It's going to be called Todos. Let's say next. And let's make our first to-do inside our database. We're going to make it an auto ID. This is a very useful thing to have, by the way. And the field is going to be a single to-do. It's going to be a string, and the value is going to be go and have a nice time. So let's save that. And there we go. We've added our first to-do to our real-time Firestore database. Cool. So the next thing we're going to have to do is go back to our terminal, and we're going to basically install the Firebase tools. So we're going to say npm I and then -g, because we want to install it globally, right? We're going to say Firebase tools. So let's just give that a sec to install. Cool, so once you have that installed, you also need to install Firebase itself, as in the package. So npm I Firebase. So let's just wait for that to install. Okay, great. So Firebase has now been installed. So we're going to now work on incorporating Firebase into our app, right? So what I'm going to do is in the src folder, I'm going to make a new file, and it's going to be called firebase.js. Now inside here, we need to import Firebase from Firebase. Then we make a variable. I'm going to call it Firebase app. That's going to be Firebase, so this one here we just imported, .initialize app, and then inside here is where we're going to put all the information that is necessary to connect our database to our app. Then I'm going to make another variable called db, and that's going to be Firebase app. So this one we just created here, it's going to contain all our information, which we will get in just a second. Firebase app.firestore. So we're going to access the Firestore from all the information that we provide in here using the initialize app method. And then finally, we just have to export this default as db. This variable right here, because this variable is what we're going to use to actually call our database inside our app. So if we go back to Firebase, you're going to want to go to this little cog here next to the project overview. Click on that, go to project settings, and down here we don't have any apps in our project yet, so we're going to click this little code icon here for a web app. Let's just call it to-do app. Set up Firebase hosting. This is going to allow us to deploy the app. So let's say register. Now these scripts are necessary if you're using a bare bones HTML, CSS, and JavaScript kind of app, but we're using React, so we actually don't need that. We need to install the CLI, which we have already done, so that's great. Next. And this is what we do when we're going to want to deploy the app. So here we've made our app. It's called To-Do app. And over here where you can see Firebase SDK snippet, you're going to want to go to the config option, and all of this information inside here, we've got API key, auth domain, database URL, and all of that. This is what we're going to need to tell Firebase to use our specific app, right? So you just cut that stuff out of there and you put it right in here, like that. Okay, fantastic. So we have now incorporated our Firebase configuration file, and we are now going to work on incorporating the actual Firestore database into our app. So I'm going to go to the home screen component. That's where we have these hard-coded to-dos over here, where we are passing them into the to-do list component as a prop, right? Remember? So what we have to do is, instead of having them hard-coded, of course we have to retrieve them from the database. So I will comment these out, and I will import db, the database variable, from the Firebase file, like that. And right now what we're going to have to do is bring in 2 React hooks. So the hooks that we're going to need are the use effect hook and the use state hook. Now we need use state because we need to store the to-dos in the local state of the app in order to display them within the component, right? So I'll say const and open up an array and say to-dos and set to-dos equals use state, and the default is just going to be an empty array because the to-dos are objects and the to-dos array will be an array of objects. So that is our state for the to-dos. Next thing we're going to need to do is use the use effect hook in order to call the to-dos that we have stored in the database into our app, and then use the state hook to set those to-dos to the to-dos from the database. So let's do that. So we say use effect, open up some brackets, make an arrow function in here, and we're going to say db, so that's our database, dot collection. Then we're going to target the to-dos collection in our database, and we're going to say on snapshot, I'll explain this in a sec, we're going to take the snapshot, make another arrow, and then we're going to set the to-dos in the state from the database snapshot. So we'll say set to-dos, open it up. Now we take the snapshot. The snapshot is essentially, you can think of it as basically someone taking a photo of how the database currently looks at that current time. So all the documents that we have in the database at that time, that is the current snapshot, right? So we're going to say snapshot dot docs, that's all the documents in the database, and we're going to map through them, so dot map, and we're going to take each doc and we're going to call another arrow and open up some more brackets. So for each doc we can call the specific information to set the specific to-do, right? So this is where we need to set the to-dos. So I'm going to say the ID is going to be the doc.id. Then the text value for each to-do is going to be doc.data.todo. So the data is basically the actual data of each document in the database that we're mapping through, and this to-do is the value. So if you go back to the database and have a look, to-dos is our collection, and the single field is a to-do. So that is why over here we say doc.data.todo, right? Cool. So if you're not sure what the use effect hook does, it essentially runs whatever code is inside of it as soon as that component loads. So that's all it does. And what we're going to have to do over here is just at the end here we put in a empty array. And what this array is the dependencies for the useEffect hook. So whatever variables you put inside of this array, if those variables change or if they're triggered off, then the useEffect will be triggered off once again. However, if we leave this array blank, that means that the useEffect will only run one time when the component loads, right? So one more thing I would like to do is just console.log the to-dos that we are getting from the database. And the to-dos should be gone from the app if we take a look. Yes, the to-dos are gone. And if we look in the console and have a refresh, so it looks like we have an interesting little permissions error over here. And I believe if we go to our database rules over here where it says rules, you can see that it says allow read, write if false. So let's change this false to true, publish the changes. Let's go back and refresh. And now you can see that our to-dos are being fetched and we can see them being displayed straight from the database. Brilliant. So now that we've successfully fetched the to-do data from the database and we are dynamically displaying it in our React app, the next thing I want to do is just fix this ID over here just because it looks really ugly to me. So I want to go to the to-do component, and over here where we are displaying the actual ID, first thing I want to do is just cut some of those letters and numbers off because this is just very long and very ugly. So if we can just shorten this down, that would be great. So the way I'm going to do that is just taking this over here where we're displaying the ID, and I'm just going to say .slice. That's a JavaScript method for strings, and I'm just going to say 0 and 3. So we're starting at 0, ending at 3. Let's see if that's working. Great, so now it's only 3 characters, so it's just a lot cleaner. The other thing I'd like to do is just make it a different color. I'll just say style, double curlies, and color. Let's make them yellow. Let's take a look. Cool, that looks a little bit better. Great. Cool, so next up we're going to work on adding a to-do. So let's go to our screens and I'm going to add a file in there called add todo.js. Then inside here I'll do the RACFE for a function component, and we're going to need use state for this one. We're going to use that to store the new to-do that is going to be added to the database. Then from React Bootstrap, I'm going to import a container, a form, and a button. Now, in terms of the use state, the new to-do is going to be new to-do and set new to-do equals use state, and by default it will just be an empty string like that. So let's go ahead and work on this form for adding a to-do. So inside the return I'll just make a h1 in here. It's going to say add a to-do. I'll also just give this a class name of my5 to give it some more space. Now underneath here we're going to have a bootstrap container, and inside that container we will have our form, React Bootstrap form. Then inside there we're going to have a form dot group, not like that, form dot group, like that. Then we're going to need a form dot label, and this is going to say add to do. I've got no idea why it decides to add label over here. We don't want that. Be careful with that. I don't know why that happens. So under the label we're going to have a form dot control, and this form control is going to have a see, it's done it again. Why would it do that? Anyways, so this form control is going to have a type of text. It's going to have a placeholder that's just going to say enter to do. It's going to have a value of a new to do, and that is going to be the use state value. The onChange property for this is going to be, we can just put an arrow function right in here and pass an e as the event. Then we can just say set new to do to the e.target.value. So whatever gets typed into this form will be set to our new to do state variable as such, right? Okay, great. So that is our add to do form basic setup. The next thing we're going to have to do is import the database variable. So db from Firebase file. So when this form submits, we're going to call a function, and that function is going to be called the add to do handler. So this form on submit will be equal to add to do handler. And let's create that function right over here. We'll say const add to do handler. That'll be an arrow function. It will take in an event, and let's say e.prevent default to stop the page from refreshing. Let's console.log the new to do that we are adding. And what we want to do is, of course, simply add it to the database. But in order to do that, we of course need to get to this page somehow, right? So the way we're going to do that is we're going to bring up the terminal, exit out of here. I'm going to say npm I react router DOM. So let's just wait for that to install. So React Router DOM has been installed. So we're going to go to our app.js, and we need to import the browser router as router. That just makes it a little bit easier, so we don't have to write out browser router every single time. And also the root from React Router DOM. And inside our main app component, instead of just displaying the home screen like that, we're going to add some routes using React Router DOM. So I'm going to make a router tag, and inside there we can delete the home screen from there. We can have a route. We can just close it off like that. And the route needs to have a path, and the path will just be slash for the home page, and the component for the home page will of course be the home screen, right? Then we also need a route for the add to do page, so the path for this one will be slash add to do, like that, and the component for this one will of course be add to do. And you can see that add to do has been automatically imported for us there. That's fantastic. We can also just add the exact property to both of these because they are exact paths. Exact path. Okay, amazing. So our routes have been set up. If we go back to our app and we refresh, need to restart the server first. npm start. And we can see that our home page still shows up, so our routes are working. That's great. And let's now add the button to actually get to the add to do page. And that's going to be in the home screen. Let's import a button from React Bootstrap, and right underneath this h1 we'll also need, in fact, a link from React Router DOM. So we use the button and the link together to get to the page. So we'll put the link right over here. Link. And the to property of this link is going to be slash add to do, like that. Now inside here we'll put the button, and the button will say add new to do, just like that. Let's have a look. There we go, add new to do, and it takes us right over here. Fantastic. Cool, so next we're going to need to actually add the button over here to add the to-do. So let's go to the add to-do component. We've already brought in button, we just haven't used it. So under this form group, let's put the button. And the button will just say add. The button needs to have a type of submit. That's very important. Cool, so I'd like to just test out this add to do handler and see if we are getting the new to do variable as expected. So let's just check that out. Let's say eat 10 bananas. Let's say add, and you can see we are console logging eat 10 bananas. Great, that's perfect. So now we need to add the logic inside our add to do handler to add the to do to the Firestore database, right? So the way we're going to do that is we've already brought in db from Firebase, so we're just going to say db.collection to-dos .add, and then we open up some brackets and curly brackets. The to-do is going to be equal to the new to-do from state, just like that. Now after we do that, we're going to want to refresh back to the home page, right? So here's a nifty little trick you can do. You destructure history as a prop. history. Then under here we can just say history dot push, and we pass in slash, so just the home page, like that. So let's test that out. Eat 10 grapes. And you can see we've added it to our database, and it has successfully refreshed back to our home page. Fantastic. Cool, so before we start working on the functionality to delete and mark the to-dos as done, I just want to change this up a little bit. So I'll go to the home screen component and give this a class name, the h1 of my5. Just want to give that some spacing. Cool, that's a lot better. And I just want to give this button a variant of success to make it green. Let's check it out. Cool, I like that. Cool, so the next thing we're going to work on is the functionality to delete a specific to-do. So let's go to the to-do component, and let's go to the delete button. Let's see, class name delete button. So we're going to have to give this an on-click event, right? And that's going to be equal to, let's just call that delete to-do handler. Delete to-do handler. Jeepers. Right? Then we're going to go ahead and create that function up here. So we'll say const delete to do handler is an arrow function. Now we'll also pass in the e and say e dot prevent default to stop the refresh. Goodness, what did I do? To do. There we go. Right, so next thing we're going to have to do is import the database variables. So let's say import db from the Firebase file. So in order to delete the specific to-do, we already have the ID as information within this component, so it makes it incredibly easy. And I'll show you how to do that right over here. So we're going to say db.collection todos.doc. So we're going to target a specific document within the database. And that document is going to be the document that has the todo.id, right? And then all we do over here is we just call the method .delete. Firebase method. So let's test this out. Let's go back to the app. You can see that the items get successfully deleted from the database and off the screen as well. Fantastic. Cool. So the last thing we're going to do with this app is we're going to work on these buttons to mark to-dos as done or not done. So let's go over back to the to-do component. And how we're going to do this is we're going to use the useState hook. Right, we're going to bring in useState into the to-do component. And we're going to set variables to check whether or not the specific to-do has been checked or not, right? So I'm going to say const checked and set checked equals use state, and the default is going to be false, as in the to-do has not been checked, right? Cool. And then what we can do is go to our to-do CSS and we can make a class called checked, and the checked class will have a text decoration of line through to give it a line going through, and a text decoration color of black. So whether or not the check class will be added to the text property of the to-do will be determined by this checked value over here, which we are using the useState hook to retrieve, right? So the way that we set this value is by clicking the check buttons, of course. So let's go to the mark button over here and say on click, we're going to call set checked, and we're going to set that to the opposite of checked. So if it's false, it will become true, and if it's true, then it will become false, right? However, in order to make this work, we're going to need to pass in an arrow function over here, just like that. Now in here where we are rendering the to-do text in this paragraph, we're not just going to do it like that. We're going to have to use an expression here with the checked variable. So we're going to use a ternary operator here. So if checked is true, we will render a paragraph which will have the to-do.text. However, this paragraph will have the class name of checked. And else, so if checked is not true, then we will simply render a paragraph with the to-do text normally, like that. So let's test this out. Oh, there we go. Awesome. So we can check our to-dos on and off. We can delete our to-dos. And we can add a to-do. Have a great meal. And there it is right there. Cool guys, so that is our app. I really hope you enjoyed making this with me and spending your time with me. If you did enjoy this video, then please subscribe to Deal Development. There's going to be a ton of content coming up in the coming months, and I'm going to provide a ton of value to you. So thank you so much guys for watching this. I really hope you learned something, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.